I wanted to talk about accessible yoga. Accessible yoga is becoming very popular. I myself really utilize this term a lot. I really want to make things genuinely more accessible, but there is a problem within this accessible yoga trend, and there's something that's missing that is really important for us to understand as teachers. Now, when we look at what accessible yoga is for, we're wanting to make the practice of yoga, specifically asana. I'm talking in relation specifically to asana because I know we can look at making it accessible for all kinds of demographics and, income brackets, but I'm speaking specifically about asana. We want to make asana accessible to all kinds of different bodies and people and not have it be exclusively for one type of body or just even for a few types of bodies. And this is great. This is a really important endeavor and direction to take. But the thing that's missing that we are totally losing sight of, and in fact, I don't know if we have really ever had sight of this, is that we are forgetting the sustainability component when we are adapting asana to make it more accessible. And I will say that this is not just in how we adapt asana for people who can't, but this is within how we adapt asana to make it more sustainable for everyone. Because if we focused on the sustainability component of yoga, and that was the lens in which we adapted asana through to have more people be able to access yoga, it's naturally going to become more accessible because most yoga poses that involve any degree of flexibility or feature any kind of intention for the body to become more flexible are accompanied by externally forcing the body into range. And this can be from another teacher's hands. This can be from the student's hands themselves. This can be from a prop. This can be from gravity. This can be from wedging the one part of the body onto the other. This can be from having the hand or the feet as a placeholder on the floor and then moving the body away from that point. There are all kinds of ways that external force show up within asana. And if all we did was look at where we can start to minimize the amount of external force that's used in asana, we would naturally create poses that are automatically accessible for way more people. So generally, when we're looking at how to make something accessible, we're thinking, how can I allow this person to feel included and get the same benefits that everybody else is getting? So we want to have them feel, or we want to resemble what the original pose kind of looks like, or the effect of the original pose as much as possible. And generally, it's the former. We are usually adapting things so that someone doesn't look too out of place in comparison to what everybody else might be doing. And this is where the downfall is, that we're not adapting necessarily for the effect, we're adapting for the look. We're creating an adaptation and a modification to make it more accessible, but we're still trying to align with the look of a pose. But if we got rid of that and we tried to adapt asana just purely for the effect, that would be one step in the right direction. But that still isn't enough, because we're still then focusing on the effect being achieved by external means. Let's just take something like a pigeon pose, for example. Say if someone is not able to get into pigeon pose and we're going, you know what, you can just lie on your back and you can do a figure four. Great adaptation, makes them feel included, makes the external rotation of that front leg that we usually have in pigeon pose, and that is usually the target area, although there are other target areas. It allows them to get that same effect, but they don't have to have one leg back and one leg forward. They don't have to try and be upright in the body. They can be on their backs. They can be a lot more comfortable, and it's a lot more accessible. It makes sense, right? But what doesn't make sense is where we are utilizing external force to still create that effect in that hip. When we get our students to go into figure four and we're having the thigh and then we're putting the foot here and then we're getting students either with or without the hands to draw the legs in towards the chest, that is utilizing force. So if we were to look at how do we remove the external application of force, or how do we in the very least minimize it, then we would naturally have an accessible adaptation, an accessible variation, an accessible modification for someone to feel more included while still getting the benefits. And that's without the risk that comes with using external force to get the body into a position. So this comes back to my point that instead of focusing on accessibility, let's focus on sustainability, because that naturally creates accessible options for people. Because the thing that makes yoga asana inaccessible is the degree of range in which most poses, most typical poses that target flexibility, the degree of range that the body gets put into. And this is often dysfunctional degrees of range. And on top of that, we're utilizing external force in some way, shape, or form to get the body into those dysfunctional degrees of range. So, of course, it makes asana inaccessible, because those who can't force their body and contort their body into these degrees of range to get the pose, they're not able to. They're like, I can't access that. I don't feel included. Then we find other ways for them to force their body. But this is also not including making yoga accessible for people who can. Because if you truly, genuinely want yoga to be accessible, would you rather have someone be able to access movement in their body for a short time or for a long time? So look at accessibility in the genuine, authentic sense. We want to support students to access asana for as long as possible. So that is why adaptations and accessibility is not just for people who can't, but also for people who can. And all of this stuff becomes included, and it naturally changes and is naturally more supportive of all your students when we focus on sustainability over accessibility. And that is what allows yoga teachers to teach classes that are impactful, that are super supportive of their students, that are informative and really give their students something to chew on. And that's important as a teacher. You don't become a teacher to not make a change. You want to make a change. You want to inspire. You want to motivate. You want to have impact. And when we focus on panning out and looking at more of this holistic perspective of how we teach, and we bring it up a notch and we focus on sustainability, all of these things will naturally be included. Your students will be much more empowered, more informed, and you as a teacher will be able to support them with your skills and your knowledge and your expertise in a way that really, truly does make a big impact. If this is something that you want to learn how to do in your teaching, look at the notes below this video and there's a link to book a call with me. Book a call with me. We can chat about how I'm able to support you to achieve this in your teaching. I would love to be able to help if this is something that resonates with you.